Good morning. My name's Ryan Littlestone from forexflow.live. Here we are, another hectic week. We had a bit of a bonkers one last week, as we expected. Explained in the video last week that we're seeing some high volatility, obviously, central banks, governments, the virus, you name it. And one of the indicators I was looking at is the VIX, which is the volatility index. So again, if we look at that chart just to start off with, looking at the weekly view, we can see that we're still running at these really high elevated levels. This is a good measure of what's happening in markets, the volatility there at the moment. So as you can see, we're around about the 70 mark still. We've been all the way up into the 80s. You know, these are multi-year highs we're seeing in this VIX market to judge that volatility. And we're seeing that reflected in, obviously, FX markets, trading markets. Currencies are going bonkers. You know, we saw the pound collapse from, 700 pips in a day, pretty much. So very difficult to trade, very difficult to trade. You can take two approaches really in this. You can try and trade the intraday levels that present themselves, but we're moving in, 30, 40, 50 pip clips at a time. So it's very difficult. Or what you can do is try and take a longer term view of the markets and pick the big wider levels to see what's happening. So one of the main things that's driving this is a lot of dollar interest. So one another market we can look at is the DXY. Now this I tend to only look at again from an interest perspective, just to see what's happening. It's not something that I use as a leading indicator. The dollar index obviously shows if there's big demand for the dollar, and that's what we're seeing, because the market is throwing around this issue where there's dollar funding issues, where liquidity is drying up for USD, and the market, when it hears that, goes rushing into the dollar. So we're seeing the dollar being bought up pretty much against every currency you can name. That's feeding into everything else. So if we look at the DXY chart, again, looking at the longer term view, just to get an idea of how volatile things are there, we can see that it's, the highest level since, 2016, 2017. And that is, again, what's feeding into the markets here. So we're seeing the dollar bought up across the board, obviously interspersed with that falling down as governments come in, as central banks act. We see short-term moves in various currencies, but then the theme gets back to dollar buying. But another reason why that's coming in and we're seeing such turmoil in markets is because there now is a big run to cash. Before when all this started kicking off, we were seeing gold getting bought up, the usual safe haven currencies getting taken. But now it's become a move into cash. So stocks keep dumping off because people are just selling. They want the cash in the bank. They feel that's the safest asset to be in right now. And that's affecting everything else. And the flows are obviously reverberating through the whole of markets. So how do we look at this going forward? We pretty much just have to go with the tide. We're stuck in the middle of it. We have to watch what the market's doing. We can try and pick levels in between, see where currencies and other markets are finding support, resistance. We can lean against those, but we've got to be prepared that things are still volatile and things can blow through. There's no good having a 50 pips, a 20 pip stop these days. Even 50 pip stops aren't standing up to scrutiny. So the only way to play is pick your levels, but maybe go smaller trade sizes, reduce your risk. Then perhaps you can give yourself a wider stop to trade some of these levels, because you've got to be prepared for that volatility. Or you stick to what you're doing and you keep tight stops, and you might end up taking on a few small losses before you hit a decent move. So plenty of ways to trade it. The most important thing right now is to stay safe, keep your account safe. It's no good looking at all this volatility and thinking, well, yeah, I can make millions here. It's a big risk. Just as much as you can make good money, you can lose good money. So that's it for this week. Stay safe, keep your stops tight, and hopefully we get through this. So good luck.